Today, we are going to be taking a look at this, the Yolobox Pro. Now, if you don't know what this is, it's an all-in-one video streaming, recording, monitoring and switching device. It can take up to 3 HDMI inputs, USB webcams, and it can stream them to up to 4 different platforms via the YOLO network, or you can stream directly via the box itself. It can also record locally, and it's ideal for the studio, but you can also take it out and about as well, because not only does it have a built-in battery, but it also has a built-in cellular modem and Wi-Fi. Today, I'm going to give you guys an overview of its features, its capabilities, and then at the end, I'm going to share with you my thoughts on the device. Now, just to be clear up front, YOLO did reach out to me and ask if I was interested in taking a look at this. And as someone who streams weekly on the channel, I said yes. But however, I do just want to say that I did receive this for free. However, they have not seen this video before it's been published. And as always, my thoughts are entirely my own. Anyway, let's get on with the video and let's take a closer look at it first of all, walk you through the features and info, and then at the end, I'll give you my thoughts on having spent some time with it. So to start, we'll just take a quick look at what you actually get with the device itself. I'll try and keep this as quick as I can. So when you lift the lid, the first thing you will find inside is a screen protector. They do include a glass screen protector as standard with it. It has this nice large touchscreen on the front, so it's a nice little addition that they've given you that in the box as well. Below that, you will find the Yolobox Pro. To get this out, we simply lift this little tag here and we can lift the device up. And here you can see that it is quite a deep tablet. We have our input and outputs along the top here. We have our 1/4 inch. We have our other connections and stuff down the bottom, and we'll take a closer look at that in a moment. Below that, we then have our instructions. This is a basic set, just giving us some info on the system as well as some links in the back as well. We have a quick guide with a QR code as well as social media links. And if we lift that up, below this, you will find a USB-C to USB-A cable, a C to C cable, a SIM tool for the built-in SIM card slot, a Allen key, as well as a 1/4 to shoe mount adapter for mounting this onto a tripod or onto a camera, depending on what you intend to do. Taking a closer look now, as I've mentioned, it is a tablet style device. It is running a customized version of Android with the YOLO software installed. It features an 8-inch touchscreen with a maximum brightness of 400 nits. It has built-in network, Wi-Fi and cellular network connectivity as well. It weighs 750 grams and it can support up to 6 inputs total for streaming out. Of those inputs, 3 of them can be HDMI, which support 1080i, 1080p, as well as 720p. It supports 1 input via SD card, so you can take info, whether it be a presentation or a video or a still, and stream that via the card. And it supports up to 2 USB devices as well, such as webcams and storage, etc. It also has a built-in 10,000 mAh battery that can be charged via a dedicated USB-C port and supports the Quick Charge 3 protocol. Walking you through the ports, on the top we have our 3 dedicated HDMI inputs which you can select from the device. These support 1080i, 1080p max and also will accept 720p as well. I have tried them at other resolutions and it did work absolutely fine with my GH5 on 4K as well, so it is worth noting that. However, that might not be the case for all cameras. Next to that, we have a USB-A port. This allows you to connect up a webcam such as the Logitech 920. I've tested it with mine and it works absolutely fine, giving you a 4th video input option. We then have a network port allowing us to actually connect up to a local network rather than using the built-in Wi-Fi or the 4G, 5G capable cellular device that's built into it as well. So if you are somewhere where you have a high-speed data connection, you can simply use that. We have our HDMI output for program output onto a monitor, and we then have a fully fledged USB-C port, again allowing you to connect up a webcam, but it also allows you to use the device as a webcam output output, allowing you to connect it to the likes of OBS, so stream directly from the device into another platform should you wish to do so. Next to that, we have our headphones monitoring jack, we have our direct mic input and line inputs, and then we have a dedicated USB-C power input port. This device has a built-in battery which is 10,000 milliamp hours, but you can also power it via this USB port as well. It supports USB Quick Charge 3.0 and will draw 5 volts 3 amp or 9 volts 2 amp or 12 volts at 1.5 amp. Flipping around to the top, on the top right, you will find the power button, allowing you to turn the device on and off, as well as take it in and out of standby. Next to that, we have a micro SIM card slot. As I said, the Yolobox Pro has a built-in cellular network device, allowing you to connect on the go without needing Wi-Fi or a dedicated network connection if you want to use it that way. Then next to that, we have an SD card slot, allowing us to record our stream locally on the device, and it supports up to 128 gig. It has this little blank installed as standard, which you can simply remove and then insert your SD card into the bottom. Then in the center, we have our mount, which can be used either on a traditional camera 3/8 or you can use it with the included mount that comes in the box. Just looking around the rest of the device, it has a nice rubberized coating on the back, which just gives it some extra protection. And around the sides here, it has a rubberized coating too, again, just to protect the device whilst in use. Next, what we're going to do is take a closer look at some of the Yolobox Pro's features and capabilities. But before we do that, I want to just talk about some of the biggest advantages of this device, and that is the fact that it is an all-in-one streaming solution. I stream quite regularly on the channel, and over the years, I've spent a massive amount of time trying to get my setup working properly. I've bought all sorts of different capture cards for my computer, trying to figure out which one will do what I want it to do. I've then had to make sure my PC was powerful enough, and then get to grips with OBS and get that set up and working as I would like. Whilst that is an extremely powerful solution, it really does take a lot of time. It's not exactly portable, and the real big advantage of the Yolobox Pro is you can stop worrying about the equipment and simply get on with the content, because you can simply take it where you need it, plug your cameras in, configure the stream, and get on with it and not worry about all of the other hassle that comes with a home-built or set-up system. What we'll do is try and demonstrate that now through the display. I'll try and show you what I'm seeing, and we'll go through a typical setup with the inputs and show you the kind of advantages the Yolobox Pro can give you. So I'm on the main home screen of the device. Now, here is where you can do the main setup for a live stream, but also the main configuration options for the unit itself. Down here, you can see that there's a big red plus. This allows us to create a live stream or put the device in monitor mode. Monitor mode is basically the same features and capabilities as you get in live stream mode, but without it actually streaming out. So you can actually use it as a live view switcher and connect it to something such as OBS or another output device via the HDMI or webcam output as well. Whereas the live stream mode actually will create a live stream once you've set up your live streaming options, which we'll take a look at in a moment. On the home display, if we go into this little button in the top right corner, this is the main options menu for the system, where you would set up your accounts for the various streaming platforms. For instance, you can see we have Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and RTMPS. That is the 4 standard options. Now, as I mentioned, out the box, the device can stream to 1 of these as standard, but you can stream to up to 4 via the YOLO service, which we'll take a look at a little bit later. If we just look under here, you can see that if you want to create an account, you can simply tap on the icon. You can see that I've got Mad's Live Tech Tips created already, but if we wanted to add another account, we would simply press the button down here and then follow the process through on the display. It would then take us to sign into the account, goes into the portrait mode, and we can do it from there. Looking at the rest of the settings here, if we start in the top left, we have our account email. That is for our YOLO account, again, for that additional streaming option. We have network settings. This allows us to configure the main network configuration on the device, so the Wi-Fi, if you're going to use it on that, or the built-in cellular option that the device has if you've put a SIM card in. We also have a network test option below this as well if you want to be able to test the network connection that you have. We have the About Device options, which here shows you the current firmware versions as well as serial number information. We have version upgrade options, so if we wanted to check if the firmware is up to date, we can do it here. You can see mine is. We have language options, allowing us to set the language of the device. Time zone options, allowing us to set that. We have a recordings button, which allows us to look at the recordings that are currently on the SD card, but you can do that elsewhere in the software as well. We have system update, which allows you to do a main update on the system if you need to for the HDMI and the other functionality. Frequently asked questions. Restore factory settings. You have the option to rotate the screen. So if you want to rotate the screen the opposite way around, so rather than have the ports on the top and that on the bottom, you can actually click done, rotate the screen and flip that around if you want to do it the other way as well. And then you have a logout option for actually getting out of the settings rather than being logged in to your YOLO account. Now, the best way for me to demonstrate all of the streaming options and the capabilities of this is to actually set up a stream. As I mentioned, whilst I could do it in monitor mode, doing it in streaming mode means I'll have every option available, such as the bitrate and stuff like that. So because this is already linked to my YouTube account, I can then click create a stream. I can create a name for it. So we're going to call this test 2. We can call it a description. Test stream, and then we can schedule a time and date. So we're going to schedule it for next week, and we will schedule it for this time of day. If I then click create, it will actually then create a stream settings option for us on the desktop. So that will remain. It won't go once the stream is finished. It remains in place all of the time. And then simply to access it, we tap and go in. Now, it's worth mentioning at this point, whilst the device has created a stream, it doesn't actually exist on YouTube yet. It doesn't create the stream on your account until you actually activate it here. So if you see, it says unconnected, and that is because no stream has actually been set up. But if you tap that, it will then put the basics in place for you on the platform. So we can click unlisted, click done, and it will now actually create and schedule that stream for me under the YouTube manager. And you can then go onto the YouTube website and you will then see that the stream is listed, and then you can do all the configuration options for the stream under there. But it means doing it this way, you don't actually have to create the stream yourself. It will simply set it up in the background, and then you can go in and do all of the extra configuration you may want. Now, before we move forward, I'm now going to hook up my cameras as well as my HDMI output. That's also going to allow me to be able to show you the actual display output from this on the full screen rather than it be an overhead, because not only can you set the HDMI output as program output, you can set it to replicate the actual screen as well. So what we'll do is we will take our inputs first of all. We have our first camera, which I'm going to plug in to here. Our second camera, we will plug in our third camera, and then I'm going to plug in the USB webcam and our HDMI output. What you will see is as I've plugged things in as well, they have actually automatically populated down here on this side of the display, and I'll walk you through all of that now once we get it full screen. So you should now be able to see what I can see on the screen of the device. Now, just to walk you around the main layout and the options on the display, the full left-hand side of the screen is dedicated to the program output as well as the input selection at the bottom. So you can see the main camera area at the top, and then you can see HDMI 1, 2, the USB, the HDMI 3, as well as add video source options as well. The right-hand side is dedicated to the functionality. So along the bottom, you've got each individual menu that allows you to select things such as the scoreboard, the audio options, the camera switching, as well as the main settings. You can, though, change this to a full screen mode by clicking that arrow, and then you can see that you have a full screen display with the options along the bottom right-hand side, again, showing us the configuration options as they come on the screen, but you can also then shrink it back to a smaller way. So depending on what setup you want, you can choose what's best for you. Looking around along the top, you can see it has the stream schedule information. So you can see that it's currently scheduled for June the 17th. We have then along the top the clock, the Wi-Fi symbol, the battery level, and then you can actually see the upload and download rate for the network connection. So when you are streaming, you'll be able to see how much data is being transferred. The overlay on the main screen, you can see the microphone input being shown at the top there. So that's the audio level input, and you can see that it's picking it up off my cameras. The audio you're hearing now isn't actually off this device. I'm using my studio setup for the audio, but you can see that it is picking up audio from the various cameras. Next to that, you have an option for the streaming resolution. So we have 1080p, 720p or 480 options. We have a record button that allows it to record directly to the SD card on the device. So not only can you stream, you can record that program output and have a backup recording of that on the SD card as well. We have the Go Live button, and then down here you can see there's a YouTube icon telling us what we're actually streaming to when connected. Looking then in the bottom here, we have our switching options. So as we've plugged our cameras in, it has automatically picked them up and listed them along the bottom. So we've got camera 1, which is HDMI 1. If I tap on number 2, you can see this is the second camera that is off to the side next to it. We have our USB webcam input, which is there overlooking the bench at the back. So if I just move to the background, you can see I've now moved to this camera here, showing you this one. And then if I go to HDMI 3, you can see the bench camera, which is the microscope looking down at the circuit board on the display there. Below this, we have the options for the video source. Now, as I've mentioned, this device can have up to 6 inputs. You have 3 HDMIs, 2 USBs, and then one of your inputs can be from the SD card, whether that be recorded footage or presentations or anything else along those lines. For instance, if we wanted to add one of them, we can click on that. It brings up the menu, and here we can configure what we want to be on another input. So for instance, if I click SD card video, it will search what's on the SD card, and you can see that we've got some stuff saved on here already. What I'll choose for this is the YOLO Live promotion video. Click OK. And then you can see that's appeared at the bottom. And if I want that to be on the main output, I would simply press that, and you can see that that's now playing in the top corner, and that will be part of the main program output as well. Now, as I've mentioned, the HDMI is currently set to replicate the screen, but if we wanted it to replicate program output, I can simply press that, and you can now see the main program output rather than the display output like I was showing you just now. And then if I choose to switch, you can see we've come back to the full screen. We can go to HDMI 2 on the side-on camera, the USB, or again, back to that promotional video if we wanted to. Under here, you can also add different inputs as well, including things like a presentation on PDF. So if you've got a presentation that you've had on PowerPoint or Google Slides, you can convert that to a PDF, select it via this option, find it on the card. So for instance, we can click on the product brochure, click on that, that's become available down the bottom there. And then I can bring that up again. If I go to full program output, and you can then see that I can actually scroll through this as a presentation on the screen, again, sharing it with our audience via the SD card. Now, once you've finished with the ones you don't want, it's nice and easy to get rid of them. You simply press and hold on the input. You can then either delete it, like that one there, click delete, or if there's configuration options for it, it will give you the option with a little pen to change the settings as well. Another feature the Yolobox Pro has is the built-in chroma key option. This allows you to remove the background when used with a blue or green screen. Now, to use this, you would select the input you want to add it onto and press that little head in a circle in the top corner, and this brings up the the chroma key settings. We would enable this and it brings up the settings, and you can then see that the background has been removed. Below this, we can choose what color screen we have. So we've got a green, but you can choose a blue screen as well. We can then set the similarity as well as the smoothness options. And then we've got the option to set a background image. So I'm simply going to choose that one, which is on the SD card, which is a default one already. Click done, and now you can see that it has replaced that background. And as you can see, we have it full screen, and it has that really nice built-in ability to be able to remove the background when used with blue or green screens. Also under this first menu is the options for multi-screen or multi-view picture-in-picture. So if we go back under here, along the bottom, you can see you have picture-in-picture, split view, side-by-side, and news layout. This allows you to configure the screens, including having the option of splitting it between the inputs. So if we start with picture-in-picture input first of all, we'll click HDMI 1 for the main screen, we'll click HDMI 3 for the second screen, and then you can see it's given us the option of putting it down there. We can resize it, we can make it larger, smaller, we can move it around. So for instance, I could put that there, make it that size there, put that down in that corner, and then you can see that that is there when I select it. So I select the input as picture in picture, and you can see that on the side. If I just change that to program output again, you can see it in the display. So in the bottom corner now, you've got that second camera. If I reach over, stick my hand underneath, you can see it's there live. If we wanted to edit that picture-in-picture view, we can simply press and hold. You'll see a pen appears, and that'll bring us back into that same menu you had before. Or if we wanted to delete it, we would simply press that and it's gone. Next, we'll take a look at split view. This again allows us to select two inputs. So we will select again HDMI 1, select that as number 2, and this allows us to actually do it as a side-by-side split screen, and we can do things such as adjust the size of the border, we can adjust the position of the separator, so I can move it to the side, and you can even do things like this, which is put the separator on an angle, so rather than actually have it vertically, you can have it so there's a slot on the side, and again, we can push that off to the side, so I could put myself in the corner like this, and then have that full display of the second camera there as well. The next option is side by side. This allows us to put two videos next to each other with either a black or a different color background. So again, we can choose that one. And for this one, we will choose USB. And you can then see the background is there, the spacing is there, so we can actually adjust the spacing of these videos. I can then click that there. If I then put the side by side, there you can see we've got both cameras next to each other. Rather than have that full screen but losing some of the view, you've now got the full field of view just with smaller boxes in the middle. The final option is a news layout option. So to do this, we will again select our input 1. We will choose our input number 2. And it actually then changes it to a large and a smaller screen, again with the option of selecting the background. We will click done on that, turn the program view back on, select the news layout, and now that you can see you have the full one but with the second one next to it, so that way you're able to again demonstrate different options and show different things on the display depending on what configuration you prefer or what you intend to be streaming. Next, we're going to move over to the right-hand side of the screen where all of the other functionality and options are. We'll choose this first screen, which is the overlay screen. Here you have the option for setting up things such as images on the display, timers, and anything really that you want to add on the display to overlay on your program output. So for instance, I've got a timer preset up here, so you could have a countdown timer for the start of the stream, and that would show on the program output. You can even do things such as add your logo. So I've added a logo in the bottom corner, and you can pretty much do anything that you'd like to do to overlay it on the screen, whether it be titles, image overlays. You have lower third options, the social media overlays. So if I click on social media, you can have like a Facebook banner. You can have functionality web URLs. So again, you can put the web address under there if you wanted to too. You can add a title. Again, choose the one that best suits your needs. So like a welcome to the show. You can do all of this again overlaying it on the display on the live program output, depending on what you want. You also have some really nice lower thirds on this as well. If we click on lower thirds, you can see all of the options that are available. So if you've got a guest on, you could choose one to put their name in, or you can put a title on the side. So if I select that one there, you can see that it's come up with all of the options. You can change the title. So I could put my name in there. If I can actually spell my name would help. You've got the name of the channel. So we could go like that, click OK. And then you can then select that, and then you can see that's appeared in the bottom corner. If I just put that onto the program output, so again, you can see that there. So it's nice and easy to be able to set these kinds of things up, and allows you to actually be able to quickly get up and running without having to mess around with too much configuration. The next screen is the platform screen. This is the one it fired up to earlier, and here you can see what platforms we're connected to. So currently you can see we are connected to YouTube. If we click the little arrow next to that, we can actually delete that if we wanted to, but we've got our Facebook, our Twitch, as well as our custom RTMPS options. So that's all there if you wanted to link it to a new system. If I just click the link on that, it'll bring up the screen, allowing us to set up a new stream if we wanted to. I'm not going to do that now, but that's exactly the same process as it would be on any streaming device. Next, moving along to the audio mixer. Now this allows you to configure the audio inputs from each of your video, as well as the dedicated inputs for your line in and microphone. At the top, we have our main program audio output control. This has its own dedicated volume. You can turn the audio on and off, and you also have an option called AFV, which is audio follows video. So for instance, if you were switching video inputs currently with AFV on, that means the audio input would switch as well. If you were using the input on your unit, or you only wanted it to stay with one of the video inputs, you would simply turn AFV off and then manually select the input from the list that's down the bottom here. Just to demonstrate that, for instance, if I turn AFV on, you can see currently it's on HDMI 1. If I shift over, it's moved over to HDMI 2. If I go to USB, you can see it's gone down to USB audio. However, if we didn't want it to do that, we can turn AFV off, go back to HDMI 1, but you can now see that the audio has remained on USB audio. If we then change it back up to here, so turn that off, turn that on, and then change the inputs, you will see that whilst it changes, the audio remains the same. Now, under each of these, you have an option to set the volume, and some of these also have the option for audio delay as well. For instance, USB audio has a delay option, and some of the other ones will have a delay option too. It is worth noting, whilst this mixer does allow you to mix different audio inputs as well, you can't mix HDMI input with USB input at this time, or audio input with USB. USB has to be a dedicated input on its own. So for instance, you could mix the audio from an SD card recording with the main HDMI input, but you couldn't mix any of them with the USB. So for instance, we've got HDMI 1 on. If we click on that, it gives us an error saying you cannot do audio mixing for USB-A or USB-C, but I could turn on the audio from the two HDMIs if I wanted to, but unfortunately you currently can't mix it with USB. If we scroll all the way down, it will give us the audio options for all of the inputs. That would include anything you've got down here. So if you did have a video on the SD card, the option for that would appear as well. And you also have delay controls for that too. Moving across, the next screen we have is something called a scoreboard. Now, this is a very nice feature that they've built into the unit. If you're going to use this for sports, it will actually automatically overlay a scoreboard on the screen that you can configure and then easily show the score of the current match or whatever the event is. To do this, you would simply turn on scoreboard display and you will see a scoreboard has appeared here. You can adjust the size of this. So for instance, if we place it there, click the tick. If I click on it, we can actually then adjust the size if we want it a bit bigger, place it down the bottom. We can then choose the name of each team, each period, and under the styling options here, we can change the name of the match. So the game name, we can select the team names, Team 1, Team 2. You can set the font, the background color, and even a logo for each team as well. The real nice thing about this is if we actually jump over and put it as full program output and show you this, you can see that I've got it currently set up, but with 2 different colors. So what we'll do is we'll start on the game name is at the bottom. We'll relabel that into something else. So we'll call that Mads Tech. We can then change the colors of the team name. So we've got Team 1. So we'll change that to Team A. We've got the font. We'll choose the text color, I think, as white, just to make that stand out a little bit easier. We've then got the background color, which is a nice gray. We'll keep it as that. And we could add a logo as well if I wanted to. Team 2, we'll call instead Team B, just to show you the change. We need to change the text color on that one for sure, because that's way too dark. And then we also need to change the color option on that as well to a slightly different gray. I think, is it that one there? We'll choose that. No, not quite the same as the one I was on. Shall we try that one? Oh, that's blue. Can't quite see the shade of gray that I had on it earlier. Oh, we've got a custom, so we can even do custom as well if we want to. We've got it as black. We've got it close. Let's change that one up there. There we go. We've got them both black now. And we could also add a logo to that as well if we wanted to. I haven't got one uploaded on this at the moment, but I could add one if I needed to. But we could choose that one there for that team. There you go. And then if we choose one for the other team as well, we'll choose that logo there. We've got a logo now on each side. And as you can see, the nice thing about this scoreboard is that it's overlaid on the screen already and it's simply ready to be used. Now, on my side of things, if I just go back to this output and just show you this a second, you can then do the options for this on the display. So for instance, I can change the score, 1, 2, and that actually overlays on the screen. So again, if I just go to full program output, you can see that down there. So that's the built-in scoreboard feature. It's a really nice little feature for quickly being able to cover sporting events with the device, and you can simply just set it up beforehand, put the names in, and it's ready to go. And all you need to do then is just change the scores as the match happens. The next screen along the bottom is the comment section. Now, when you're live streaming, this will connect to your YouTube account, for instance, and it will show any live comments on the screen here as well. Whilst you would usually want a device to be able to message back to people, it's nice to be able to see your comments here. So if you're the person doing the streaming, but you're not actually the person doing the content, you'll be able to just keep an eye on things and just make sure no one starts saying things like no audio or the video's lost. So it's just a nice little feature to have on the device if you want to keep an eye on what's going on in the comment section on a live stream. The next screen is the auto switching screen. Now this allows you to configure the device to automatically switch between the inputs rather than you do it manually. This is really handy if you're covering a sporting event and you simply want to allow the device to jump between different cameras. For instance, we can set up our video sources, so we can choose HDMI 1 and HDMI 2. We can then set the time scale. So HDMI 1, we want 10 seconds, and we'll say actually 5 seconds for HDMI 2. We can then switch on the auto switch, and it will now automatically switch between these inputs. So as I'm talking, you'll see in a moment it hop over to the other camera after 10 seconds, and then it will simply stay here for 5 seconds and then bounce back across to the other camera as well. And it does that on the program output. So again, if I just jump to full program output for you, you will see that it will simply bounce between these two options automatically. So it's just a nice way of being able to automatically configure the device to do what you want to be able to do. There are some other options under this as well. You have the options for loop, you have switch in order, so whether you want it to be sequential or you can change it to random. To do that, you need to turn that off. So if you are having multiple cameras, rather than it just go HDMI 1, HDMI 2, HDMI 3, and then the next source, it will actually just randomly choose the sources rather than do it that way. And you can also then set a main video source for that, so it will have one to primarily jump to and then hop between the others at random intervals. The last screen to show you is the settings screen. Now this is where all of the configuration is for the streaming side of this device. So at the top we have our video source switching mode. That is how it switches when you tap the screen over here. At the moment it's on a single tap, so if I single tap on the screen it changes, but if you want to make sure that it's not going to change with an accidental tap, you can do that as a double. So rather than it being a single, you can see I have to do it as a double to switch between them. So for me, I prefer it on single. The next option is the SD card switching option. This allows you to select what happens when you switch from a video, for instance, playing on the SD card. Standard, it will just continue to play until it gets to the end. However, you can have it to resume the first frame and then pause when you stop, or you can simply say it to pause and continue when you go back in. Below that is our SD card management. Here, like that screen on the main settings menu, simply shows you what videos you have on the card and what the current storage status is. You can also, under here, manage some of these videos. You can delete them if you want to as well, and it gives you the option of doing that via the select and delete down the bottom. The next option down is the program out option. Now this is the one I've been using to switch between this full screen or this replication of the display screen you can see here. It's nice to be able to configure between the two. So if you want to be able to put this on a larger display to see what's going on, but be able to see all of the options still, you can do that. Or you can simply configure the HDMI output to be a program output and do all of the viewing and configuration via the screen on the device. Below this is the option for USB-C output. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this device allows you to use it as a webcam feature as well. For instance, you can plug it into OBS, it will be detected, and you can use this then as just the switcher rather than the whole streaming device, or actually stream from this and use the webcam functionality into another device such as OBS and record that locally as well, freeing up your HDMI port for something else, such as another display or even another program output somewhere. Under this, you also have some options as well. You have the option for default as well as flip horizontally, just like you had for the main display. The next option down is our video source transitions. This chooses how it transitions between our sources. So for instance, if I just change now, you can see it's quite a hard change, but we have other options such as a fade, so a much slower transition, and you have a duration option at the top here. We have directional wipe, so it will wipe through. You have all of the transitions down, window slice, simple zoom, cross zoom is one of my favorites. So if I select that, you can see it has a really nice transition, especially when you're doing it fast. It's a really nice to be able to configure these, but you can also change the duration on these as well. So if I do that, you can see now that's going to be a much slower transition rather than a faster one. And you've even got things such as cube. If we do that as a fast one, it's a nice quick one as well. So again, you can choose how it switches between the inputs as well as how it actually displays that as well. Scrolling down below this, we have our streaming mode options. This allows us to select whether we're just going to stream directly to a platform or via that YOLO service that allows you to stream to 4 different platforms at the same time. I've currently got it configured for the single platform, but you can change that if you want to, and then you can say your selected platform will be disabled, and that would then switch it into the multi-streaming options. I'm actually going to cover that in a separate video, and I will publish that in the future, and I will make sure there's a link to that in the description of this one as well. Next, we have our video output mode, whether you want it to be HDMI out or display port out, so you can change the setting on that. We have our encoder settings for our live streaming. So here you can set whether you want it on CBR, which is constant bitrate, VBR or CQ, and you can set the actual bitrate and frames per second of the live stream as well. So whereas you have the resolution up here in the top above my head, so if I tap on that, you can see the resolution options come up. You have the streaming and encoder settings under the menus over here. The final option at the bottom is our recording limits. Now, as I've mentioned, this device can record to an SD card on board as well, so it will record a backup of your stream. You can decide what files limits you want on that, in the sense of how long do you want it to record before it splits it into a separate file. The advantage to this is, rather than actually risk losing part of a stream should there be an issue, you can tell it to split it into 10-minute, 20, 30 or 60-minute chunks, but you can tell it to record continuously if you want to as well. But my personal advice wouldn't be to do that, and I think 10 to 20 minutes is probably somewhere good to start. Next, I just want to talk a bit about the local recording on the Yolobox Pro, and we're currently recording to the SD card. What you're seeing now is that recorded footage taken in at 1080p. I've got my Rode Wireless Go connected to the mic input, and if I go on the overhead, just to show you, you can see that we've got that on the mic in there, and I've currently got it on AFV off, which means we are not following the video. So when I switch between the sources, the audio remains the same. However, if I did want to change that, what we could do is turn off the microphone, turn on my HDMI mic, which you're now getting off my Panasonic G9, turn AFV on, and then what should happen is when I do the switch, we should then hop over to here, which is now taking the microphone audio from my camera, which is above. This is the GH5, so you can hear then when I switch between them that we're getting that audio switching between the sources. But obviously, in this situation, that isn't the perfect setup. So what I'm going to do is turn that off, turn that back on, turn that off so you're not getting dual audio, and that way you're getting the same audio across the two inputs. Another nice thing which I've currently got set up is I've got my overlay. So you can see we've got my social media overlay. I can turn that on and off if I don't want that. And I've got my name overlay just like I have on my channel normally, which is that one down there. And we can turn that one on and off as well. So really, this just gives you a bit of a demonstration of the kind of video that the device will record locally. It's definitely better than what you would get on the likes of YouTube recording afterwards. And it's nice that you do have the ability to have that local recorded copy. It's just worth taking into account that the bitrate will follow the live stream rate. Now, just before we wrap this one up and share with you some thoughts, I just want to talk about YOLOLIVE themselves and sort of their development with this device, because they are constantly adding features, updates, and in fact, in the time I've been recording this video, there has been a new update released that adds even more functionality, and in fact it's made parts of this video wrong. For instance, you can now have up to 10 sources instead of 6, adding additional options from the SD card. They've added the ability for external storage, and they are really taking feedback from the community and adding features all of the time. So it's really great to see that not only do you have a good product, but you also have a company behind it that is constantly listening to the community that's using it and then bringing in new features as well. Okay, so it's now time for me to share with you my thoughts on the Yolobox Pro from YOLIVE. Before I do that, I just want to be clear again up front that they did send me this for free. However, they haven't seen this video before it's been published, and they have had no input into this content. This video isn't as complete as I wanted it to be. There is so much more that I could talk about on this device, but we are well over 40 minutes already. So what I'm going to do is split this into more content in the future as we continue to use it and share some experience with it. I'm going to be doing a live stream with it, and I'm going to be doing more content. So if you're interested in that, please do make sure you hit the subscribe button and don't forget to hit the little bell next to it as well. As for what do I think about the Yolobox Pro, I'll be honest, I think it is one of the simplest and easiest ways to get into streaming. Outside of the people doing PC gaming, I think it probably covers 99% of use case for most people. Even if you're doing PC gaming, it is well worth a look. However, if you're someone who wants to set up live events, you want to stream in your studio but able to go out and about as well, or you just want the simplest and quickest solution, this is going to be one of them, and I really do think you should consider it as part of your plan. It allows 6 inputs, but now with the new firmware, you can have 10 sources. It's got a built-in battery, that's cellular modem, Wi-Fi, and it just makes streaming easy. You simply plug the cameras in, choose the resolution, choose the bitrate, choose the settings for your stream, hit go, and you're done. You don't have to learn OBS, you don't have to mess around with capture cards, and it just makes streaming easy. And as I've already mentioned, it allows you to concentrate on the content and not the actual setup itself. I do see there being so many use cases for this that I haven't even thought about yet. And even if you're not streaming, it even makes a great local switcher because you can just use it as a switching device for your sources as well. It's got both that program HDMI output, but also output via USB as well, allowing you to use it through that webcam functionality in the likes of OBS too. There is a link to it in the description if you want to get yourself one, and I want to say a massive thank you to YoloLive for sending me one over to have a look at. We will be using it again. We will be streaming with it both in the studio and out and about, and I'm going to do more content trying to cover some of the stuff I haven't been able to cover today as we do that moving forward. If you found this video interesting, please do consider giving it a like. If you're new here, please do consider hitting the subscribe button. Tell me what you think about this as well. Tell me what you think about this video. If there's any questions, put them in the chat and I will try and answer them as well. If you'd like to support the channel, there are links to my Patreon as well as Buy Me a Coffee in the description. And I also have a dedicated Discord server if you're interested in checking that out as well. Anyway, that's it from me on this one. Stay safe and I will speak to you soon.